So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Excited to see all of you here. I think most of people are actually joining from the US, but I think in Europe right now it's quite late at this point. So, oh, India. Wow, it should be very late for you then. Well, we're very happy to see you here as well. So, thank you so much for joining. So today our goal is to show you what you can do with the Escape and the Wiz integration together. I think our goal together is just to secure modern cloud native application, really focus on the modern here to make sure all modern organizations have their tools in mind that we've built together with Wiz to help you with that. And we're joined today by Seth Kirschner, who is our joint client. And he's going to share with you his actual experience with the integration and why it was important for him to have that in mind. So just at the beginning, we're quickly going to present you what Escape and Wiz do in case you don't know one or the two companies, or maybe both, and present you common the cloud to code security challenges, and then we'll just give the stage to Seth to tell about his pain points that he met and how Escape and this solved together. This for DoubleVerify, maybe also give a little bit the stage to explain what DoubleVerify does, and then in the end we'll just for potentially Escape or with customers or joint ones who are joining. I'll just give you some steps on how to get started and answer shortly all the questions that you might have. So don't hesitate, please, to drop your questions in the chat during the session. So we'll keep them in mind and we'll address them at the end. And now I'll give the stage to Tristan to present what Escape does.
Thank you, Alexandra, and thank you, Seth, for joining us today and accepting to present how you're using Escape and Wiz together and how that brings value to your team. I'm Tristan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Escape. Escape is a modern DAST solution. We reinvented the DAST field from scratch to make it work properly with modern processes like DevSecOps. For modern stacks like single page app and APIs, and to fight modern threats, including especially business logic vulnerabilities like BOLAs, IDORs, and other access control issues. And we are excited to partner with Wiz and to provide the value in combination with what Wiz can provide on the cloud security side. The particularity of Escape is that we focused a lot on the time to value, on the deployment. So Escape can integrate with the tools that you already use, including API gateways, cloud providers, CI/CD providers, developer tools like Git repositories or source version control systems. And using this data from simple API connection, it can run agentless scan on internal and external application to discover vulnerabilities easily and provide with remediation steps. In this context, we recently had a deeper partnership with Wiz, and we're really proud to see this integration popping up in Escape that brings a tremendous amount of value, both from understanding the attack surface and also for discovering vulnerabilities. Thank you for coming here, and I'm excited about this session today. I will hand out the stream to Sashank from Wiz for the presentation on his side. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tristan. Appreciate the partnership, and thank you everyone for being here. My name is Shashank. I'm on the product marketing team at Wiz. Want to give you just like a quick overview of what Wiz does before Seth kind of gets into the meat of how the integration actually works. So for anyone that doesn't know, Wiz started as a cloud security product, mainly focusing on infrastructure risks. So things like vulnerabilities, misconfigurations, any sort of PII or sensitive data that exists within your resources there. But very similar to Escape, we really focused on time to value. And we have an agentless approach to be able to quickly connect to all of the cloud provider APIs and be able to scan through your resources and be able to map those very easily on our security graph, which just gives you like a topology of all of your cloud resources and how they're interacting. But one of the key elements that we do is when we inventory all of the resources that we find in the cloud, we also inventory the APIs that we're able to find and create application endpoint objects within Wiz. And Wiz is able to say, hey, is this a application endpoint object that is exposed to the internet? That's something that we can do with our dynamic scanner, but where Escape really comes into play and how it is able to help us provide even better context and even better risk assessment for our customers is that they can actually say, hey, is this an endpoint that can be exploited, right? So we can say inventory API endpoints, is it exposed externally? Escape kind of comes in and kind of does the other piece and confirms that it's exploitable. And that's really where the partnership shines. So again, we started with just cloud resources, and just to kind of give you an overview of the platform, we've also shifted a lot of the same policies. So looking for misconfigurations, vulnerabilities, all of the things on the cloud resources, we've shifted them left into Wiz code. So earlier in the software development lifecycle. So within your Git repositories, within your CI/CD pipelines, we're kind of able to use the same policies in the cloud at the source and be able to tell if those risks exist earlier, so you're not actually increasing your attack surface in the cloud. And then finally, our most recent release is Wiz Defend, which is actually able to say, hey, are there any real-time threats within your cloud? So this is kind of the whole platform, but like I said, where Wiz and Escape really kind of shine together is kind of with our API inventory and the context that Escape is able to add. And just wanted to quickly highlight, we have a very rich integration ecosystem. We have over 150 integrations to enable you to do things like if Wiz finds a critical issue, push those to your ticketing and messaging tools, export them to your data lakes. And again, when it comes to Escape, there's kind of a bi-directional integration here, which we'll dive into a little deeper. But we're not only pulling, Escape not only pulls some of the information from Wiz to contextualize it within Escape, but then if there's any sort of DAST findings that Escape has, we're able to enrich that context within Wiz and then also contextualize it with all of the other risks that exist within your cloud. So just want to provide a quick overview. If there's any questions, feel free to put them down. And then I'll pass it on right now for the next slide, and then we'll get into Seth's content for DoubleVerify.
Yeah, so what we observed about the current cloud native application pain points, because the way applications are built and deployed has changed a lot in the past 15 years. And we are now in a situation where they are built and deployed at an incredibly high pace in the cloud. So the modern applications are becoming increasingly complex. They have more business logic built in. They use microservices. They have a lot of components. They use third-party libraries mixed together with custom code. So they are very complex and offer a prime targets for attackers. They rely on a lot of APIs that are consumed by either third-party services or single-page apps. And so those APIs contain a lot of business logic, and finding business logic vulnerabilities and mapping those business logic vulnerabilities with the right stakeholders can be time-consuming, especially in large organizations with a huge digital footprint and that have a lot of internal development teams. Security team, from our discussions and from what we observed, often struggle to connect application-level vulnerability findings with the cloud infrastructure insight. They struggle with tracking from a vulnerability what is the infrastructure part that is responsible for this vulnerability, and tracking that down to the developer or the person that can actually do the fix. So there is a lot of time that is spent on understanding the ownership and prioritizing the vulnerabilities that could be actually automated. So I will hand it over to Seth to see if that echoes to the challenges that they had internally at DoubleVerify, and how we could mitigate that all together at DoubleVerify, Wiz, and Escape.
Awesome. Thank you, Tristan and Shashank. I appreciate it. As a brief introduction and background, my name is Seth Kirschner, and I lead application security for DoubleVerify. DoubleVerify is a global publicly traded ad tech company. We measure ads at a very large scale, 24/7, 365, and we have APIs that are up into the forms of trillions of events. And they're very disparate from one another. And so while not all of them go through an API gateway, for example, we also are constantly challenged by the emerging technologies that are evolving, emerging attacks within the API scape, and the API concerns for us continue to grow. So within my team, I manage everything from pre-code, threat assessments, during code, through our CI/CD and into production, as well as our offensive testing. And so the unique partnership that we built between Wiz and Escape really helped us protect some major gaps that we had. So talking a little bit about some of the pain points across the way. So as I mentioned, not everything we do goes through an API gateway. And one of the main reasons for this is our very high throughput and very low latency requirements. So it's extremely difficult for us to put things in line. Even small milliseconds of latency makes a huge difference for us in our industry. And so this creates a really great challenge because we have different forms of APIs that are exposed across our company. And they, in many cases, have different architectures, different designs, and they require some sort of inventory. And so one of the first challenges was, how do we get a central inventory? And we already had, for example, Wiz deployed. We're an early stage customer of Wiz. We already had Escape deployed. We're an early stage customer of Escape. And it wasn't just north-south traffic. We also really wanted to begin focusing on our east-west traffic as well. And so building that unified inventory helps us go to the next point, which is, how do we perform scanning across all of our APIs when we have so many different APIs across our environment? And so some of them might be deployed in cloud, some of them might be deployed elsewhere, some of them might be deployed on edge services, and some of them might be coming in from acquisitions, for example. And so wherever our APIs are running, whether they're in our dev environments, in our staging environments, in our production environments, whether they're externally exposed, whether they're internal, we wanted to make sure that we had a holistic view and holistic scanning. And so these challenges required us to build a solution that also didn't require duplicative agents. We didn't want sensors, multiple sensors running on every single workload that we had in our environment. And as Tristan mentioned, with the increased usage of microservices, which we heavily rely on, we wanted to make sure that we had coverage across the way. And so what did this allow us to do? We knew that Escape is really powerful on the dynamic scanning and making sure that we have complete coverage, looking at business challenges and making sure that we map our API attack surface to those business challenges. And Wiz, on the cloud security and container security side and code security now, we wanted to make sure that we had holistic visibility. And so this allowed us to create a really great partnership between both solutions in order to provide DoubleVerify the most value possible. And so what this did is essentially Wiz has an external attack surface management page, which we'll be presenting here in a few minutes. And so this pretty much gave us a full inventory of all of our endpoints that were exposed publicly, for example, throughout our environment. And so we would get, for example, a list of URL endpoints, a list of relevant ports that might have been discovered. And this information, so that was step one, would then be transferred into Escape, which is going into step two. And this information would then be like classified, for example, what type of API endpoint is it? Are there any particular API schemas discovered that match this particular endpoint, and enriching all the context that we had from our environment. The third point was then we wanted to scan it. So once we had a good understanding of that particular endpoint and what it was serving, we want to be able to run hundreds, if not thousands, of dynamic scans against this particular target and look for potential business logic vulnerabilities, any secrets, any CVEs or CWEs that might be impacting this particular endpoint, and then ultimately feed that data back into Wiz to be able to show on the graph. And so this allowed us to build sort of this holistic unified area where we could connect with all of our different sources that were serving our APIs, and through this process allow us to not only get a complete inventory of all of our APIs, but then push that data into back into the Wiz graph, so that way we can view all of our information there. Here's an example that you're seeing on the screen for what does that endpoint look like once it's pulled into Wiz. And so you'll see that it's found using Wiz as sort of the unique identifier there. And this is a perfect example where it's getting a description of the particular endpoint. It's automatically classifying the business use case. It's allowing us to check if there's a particular WAF in front of it or any authentication available. And so Escape does this automatically, pulling in the data right from the Wiz external attack surface and giving us and helping us resolve some of the challenges that we were facing along the way. And so this additional enrichment of the data that Wiz originally had allowed us to better classify, better scan, and create a more holistic view. Talking about what it looked like on the Wiz side, here's their external attack surface page. So you'll get a list of particular endpoints. This is showing in the table view, but there also are screenshots of these particular endpoints that are served, and any relevant findings that are associated to this particular endpoints. And so what we did is we took this list of endpoints, fed them all into Escape, enriched it, and then began scanning with hundreds and thousands of different scans to look for different vulnerabilities or different misconfigurations in the particular API endpoints that we had. So here's an example of just one of the Escape findings that would have been ported into Wiz. And so this is a particular finding around access control allow origin header. And this is a vulnerability that's, I would say, not too common, but often common in many APIs that are built and developed. And this is a finding that we wanted to show in Wiz, but originally was not present. And so once again, using this unique partnership, we were able to get these enhanced Escape findings into the Wiz graph, and therefore shown on all of our vulnerabilities. Here's an example for a vulnerability itself. So Escape pulling in a particular CWE for a API endpoint that's put here, and then it has additional links to MITRE and CISA and everything else related to Wiz's graph. And ultimately, just to wrap up from DoubleVerify's perspective, one of the key messages that I hope to deliver is, one, this integration allowed us to build a unified API-based external attack surface management page. So it allowed us to pull the complete inventory from Wiz, allow us to enrich those items completely, scan them in extreme depth, giving us certainty and coverage that we might not have been missing any particular vulnerabilities or misconfigurations, and then push this data back into Wiz, building this unique holistic perspective. So going back just to review this particular slide, because I think it's important, DoubleVerify greatly attributes a lot of their API success to the combination of having Wiz and Escape simultaneously together as a unified integration and partnership. And this makes DoubleVerify give us more certainty that our APIs are not only discovered, but they're inventoried and that they're tested and secured properly. So I'm going to flip back. And
Seth, question.
Yeah.
Sorry, just as you were kind of going through, I thought of a question and was wondering if you could answer it. So curious, I guess, like once you get the DAST findings back into Wiz, how has that kind of impacted your prioritization of issues? Like what type of, how much more do you like put a priority on like a finding that comes back from Escape than like if you did not have that information today?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think let's see if I have like a decent screenshot to show. Here's like a good example, right? Under the findings page within the external attack surface analysis in Wiz, you'll have a set of findings. And oftentimes these findings are based on specific misconfigurations or vulnerabilities that Wiz might have already identified as part of their agentless or agent-based scanning that they're doing in your environment. But oftentimes, the extent of which they're scanning APIs can be limited. And so Escape's additional scanning capability allowed us to pull in, for example, additional critical and high findings that we previously wouldn't have known about into the Wiz graph, and allows us to then present these findings on our external attack surface page and begin to prioritize those accordingly. So for example, like let's say we had a particular endpoint and the endpoint only had one low or one medium finding. We might not have prioritized remediating that item. We might have focused on endpoints, for example, that had a critical or high finding. But what if none of our endpoints had critical or high findings? And we ultimately were successful in remediating a lot of our Wiz issues. And so that number slowly but surely like went very far down. And then it's at that point, it's like, how do we get more data into Wiz? And so Escape was one of the unique opportunities where we could start getting additional findings, mostly specific to all of our APIs, although as Tristan mentioned, they now also support scanning single page web apps and other dynamic scanning capabilities. But this allows us to populate more data in Wiz and begin prioritizing those results equally as we would treat other critical issues in Wiz today. And in addition to that, with greater certainty, we can understand, for example, are these APIs north-south or east-west? Because we give greater priority to those APIs that are 100% certainty exposed publicly to the internet, or if they're maybe exposed to like a limited set of partners or clients or vendors that we have as well. And so using that data, we can, I would say, remediate more targeted and allow us to prioritize those criticals and high findings that previously weren't available to us in a more like workflow and holistic way. And I would say overall, like that enhancement to our triage process has been really great. For example, of my team of software security engineers to go and help teams burn down API specific vulnerabilities that we may not have had visibility into previously. But great question.
Thank you, Seth. I'll definitely, for any Wiz customers that are at zero critical issues, I'll definitely recommend they pull in more findings.
It'll keep you busy.
Thank you.
Awesome, Tristan. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll hand it back over.
Thank you, Seth, for this clear presentation of how exactly you used the combination of Escape and Wiz together to get more deeper visibility into your API attack surface. I think one of the main points that I want to emphasize here is how easy it is to deploy this combination, this partnership in your environment. Both Wiz and Escape are companies that are very focused on time to value and efficiency. We know that security teams are really busy and we want to protect their time. So we really focused on making this integration to be as easy as possible and as efficient as possible to bring a maximum of value in minimal time to be easily operationalized. So here, there are only actually two connections to make to have the full back and forth bi-directional connection between Escape and Wiz. From the Wiz side, to pull the data from Escape, there is simply a new Escape integration to create in the Wiz integration panel. And this integration will allow Wiz to fetch the data from Escape, so the vulnerability data, the exposure information, we'll push the data to Escape, we'll push the inventory data to Escape, and will allow us to scan the data that is exposed. And then in Escape, in the workflow panel, there is the possibility to simply push all the resulting vulnerabilities directly into the Wiz security graph. This is done using a simple workflow that has like a push data to Wiz option after the integration has been connected. And this will automatically send back all the data generated by Escape, including the critical vulnerabilities, the exposure, back into the Wiz security graph. So there is nothing to configure apart from the integrations. And then both Wiz and Escape will reuse the configuration that you have done already in both tools, and this will be automatically matched between the resources. So here, this is what's really important. We try to make that as seamless as possible for both the security teams and the cloud security teams and the AppSec teams in order to be able to analyze the data and get value very quickly from the partnership. That will be all from my side. I think we are reaching the end of the presentation of the webinar, and we can take some questions from the web.
I think we have a question from Chris about the source of the repo for the vulnerabilities. Based on the screenshot, probably he meant the information that's been shown on this site.
Yeah, I can answer that one. So yeah, if there's a vulnerability that's found in Wiz and you want to figure out what is the source repository for that vulnerability, this is where Wiz code comes into play. So if you connect your VCS or your source code repositories to Wiz, then we're able to scan those repositories and then tie them back directly to the vulnerabilities that are found in the cloud. But then again, these same scans can be run within your IDE. So as the developer is actually coding, they can run with scans. They can also do them within the CI/CD pipeline. So like before a commit, you're able to like actually see if there's any Wiz findings there before it actually gets pushed into production. So you can kind of do it across the board there.
Yeah, on the Escape side, if there is a vulnerability that is found by Escape specifically, there is also the possibility, as I shown before, right, like to integrate Escape within the code repositories. And if you have integrated Escape with your code repositories, we will do a matching of the vulnerabilities that we found externally or from the network back to the repository and try to identify the code owners. So it really depends on the source of the vulnerability. If it's something that has been found by Wiz, probably will be tracked using Wiz code. If it's something that has been found by Escape, we have our own way to track it back to the repository.
I think we have the next question. That's actually a question I heard about a lot as well. What version of Wiz is required for this integration? Is it Wiz Cloud, Wiz Code, I think?
It's Wiz Cloud Advanced. So yeah, it's a Cloud Advanced. So we're able to do our API inventorying with Cloud Advanced. So you kind of have the API objects there already. So yeah, Wiz Cloud Advanced.
And I think this is the question maybe for Seth. How long did it take you to set up the integration and to get the results?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it totally depends, right? In our case, we did like a crawl, walk, run approach, both with Wiz and Escape during the deployment. Slowly, we granularly would roll it out to various systems just to make sure it's set up properly, the results are what we expected. But at least on the pull, I would say it's pretty regularly, like at least once a day. It's pulling the data from Wiz. Wiz's external attack surface manager, to my knowledge, is also scanning about once a day. So you have to think like roughly, let's say every 24 hours, a new scan is occurring from Wiz. It populates the external attack surface management inventory. Then approximately once a day, that same data is being pulled into Escape. Escape is then going to conduct all the additional scans, and then you can set the data for I guess cadence for pushing it back, but by default, I believe it's also 1 day. So you can imagine that like approximately every 24 hours, you're getting that full cycle of the data being pulled in from Wiz, scanned, and then pushed back into the graph. And that allows us to populate that data, I would say, in a reasonable period of time for an analyst to go and review any results. But also you can set up notifications along the way, either on the Wiz side or on the Escape side or both, to whatever makes the most sense for you. And so that way, if, for example, there's a critical that is picked up during that 24-hour period, it could automatically notify you via Slack or your ticketing system that you prefer. And then in terms of like the base integrations of rolling out Escape and Wiz, there's many different approaches. And I would just say you can talk to Tristan or Shashank from Wiz and Escape to talk about the rollout from that perspective.
I think we're gonna wait maybe a couple of minutes, 1 or 2, if there are any other questions. So please feel free to drop them in the chat. I also ran a little poll about who is using among the audience Escape with, or there was someone who actually doesn't use Escape and doesn't use Wiz. So if you want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out to our team there, and they're able to explain you the integration on our side too. So you can just book a demo with one of probably Tristan or someone from other else from Escape team. So just feel free to pick a time that suits you best. And if you have any remaining questions, please let us know.
And also, I just wanted to share that if anyone has any questions for me, being a customer of both vendors and helping to build out this integration, as well as some of the benefits from both of these items, I'm also available. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to talk about either Escape or Wiz or both together. And it's been a really great partnership with both vendors. Thank you.
Yeah. Added the link in the chat if you want to connect with Seth.
I guess as we wait for
thank you, Seth.
Sorry, go ahead, Tristan.
Yeah, thank you, Seth, for the kind words. Really appreciate the partnership on our end as well. I think this was a great use case and great project. So we are looking forward as well to extend the partnership with Wiz, continue to have like deeper integrations. I know that both companies are moving fast, right? We are expanding our capabilities very often. So looking forward to this continued partnership with you, Seth, and the Wiz team. And thank you for taking the time to present and do a retext of your experience using both tools.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for the attendance. I think we don't have any questions left. So thank you so much. And one thing for everyone who attended, we'll also share a recording. You'll be able to access the recording directly after the session if you want to rewatch some moments, and it will be available for everyone on demand as well. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.